Imagine you are standing at the edge of a vast desert at night. The horizon stretches endlessly, a black canvas scattered with indifferent stars. In that silence, one question rises above all others. What does it mean to live wisely? Not merely to live, not merely to survive or succeed, but to live with a clarity of mind and a depth of spirit that pierces through the illusions we dress our lives in. The unsettling paradox is this: most people desperately seek wisdom, yet they fear what wisdom truly demands. To be wise is not to gather more possessions, nor to chase every fleeting opportunity, nor to impress others with clever words. To be wise is to see through the comforting lies that keep us asleep. And when the illusions fall away, when the world no longer flatters or deceives us, wisdom often feels like fire, burning away everything false, leaving us exposed, uncertain, vulnerable. This is where the path of the wise man begins, in discomfort, not ease. He asks himself questions others dare not ask. What if the goals society praises are nothing but shadows? What if success as we know it is only a gilded cage? What if the life we have been told to chase is, in truth, no life at all? The wise man refuses to flee from these questions. Instead, he holds them in his hand as one would hold a burning coal, painful, searing, but illuminating. The average person throws it away, preferring comfort over clarity. But wisdom is born in those who endure the heat of such questions until they reveal light. Consider the world we inhabit. Endless noise, relentless distraction, an avalanche of opinions packaged as truths. Social recognition has replaced genuine self-understanding. We collect achievements like trophies, yet our inner lives remain barren. This is the great irony of modern existence. We are surrounded by more knowledge than at any other time in history, and yet true wisdom has become increasingly rare. The wise man moves against this current. He knows that wisdom is not a library of facts but a sharpening of perception. He trains himself to see reality as it is, not as he wishes it to be. And this ability to see clearly requires an unusual kind of courage. The courage to strip away the masks we wear for others, and more dangerously, the masks we wear for ourselves. At this stage, wisdom feels less like a gift and more like a burden. The man who begins to awaken often feels estranged from the very society he once sought to belong to. The conversations of the crowd ring hollow. The ambitions of the many appear shallow. He feels alone, not because the world has changed, but because he has begun to perceive its emptiness. And yet, this loneliness is not a curse but a doorway, for it is only by stepping away from the noise of the multitude that he can hear the faint whisper of truth within. Socrates, often called the midwife of wisdom, once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." These words are not a casual remark but a demand, a provocation. To live without examination is to exist as a shadow, moving from one impulse to the next, carried by the winds of desire and fear. But to examine, to pause, to wrestle with the deeper meaning of one's existence, that is the beginning of a life that rises above the mechanical flow of time. And so, the philosophy of a wise man does not begin with easy affirmations or comforting platitudes. It begins with a rupture, a break in the ordinary, a willingness to look into the abyss of uncertainty and not turn away. This is where we must start, at the threshold of questioning, at the edge of the desert, under the indifferent stars. For only those who dare to ask what life truly means can take the first step into wisdom. Once the first rupture occurs, when illusions begin to fracture, the wise man's journey enters its most dangerous stage, the struggle within. For wisdom is not gained by a single revelation but through a long and unrelenting war with the self. The war begins quietly. Old desires whisper, "Return." Comfort calls like a siren. Come back to what is familiar, safe, celebrated. Society offers an easier bargain. Surrender your questions, accept the common answers, and we will reward you with belonging. Yet the wise man, if he is honest with himself, cannot return. For once the veil has been lifted, even for a moment, the illusion can never again be fully believed. This inner battle often feels like exile. The wise man sees how tightly most people cling to appearances, status, wealth, approval, and he recognizes those same cravings in himself. He does not escape them by denial. He confronts them. He studies the restless hunger in his heart, the insatiable thirst for validation, the subtle pride that hides beneath his virtues. This confrontation is not glamorous. It is exhausting, humiliating, often painful. To know oneself is not a comfortable pursuit, because self-knowledge reveals both our highest potential and our deepest corruption. And here lies the paradox of wisdom. The man who seeks truth discovers first not the grandeur of enlightenment but the chaos within his own soul. He realizes how fragile his thoughts are, how easily swayed his emotions, how inconsistent his actions. Far from feeling powerful, he often feels weak, fractured, divided. But this weakness is not defeat. It is the beginning of transformation. For only by seeing his own brokenness clearly can he begin to build a life rooted in something real. The inner struggle is not only against desire but also against fear. To walk a path of wisdom is to risk isolation, misunderstanding, even ridicule. The world rarely celebrates those who question its values. Friends may fall away, careers may falter, comforts may vanish. The wise man must therefore ask, am I willing to lose the world in order to find myself? This question is not answered once but countless times. Each day a new test of courage. During this stage, the wise man often feels pulled in two directions: the gravity of the old life and the vision of something higher. The old life promises ease, applause, acceptance. The higher life promises depth, authenticity, freedom. But freedom is frightening because it demands responsibility. To be wise is to lose the excuse of ignorance. Once you see clearly, you cannot claim you did not know. You are accountable not only to society but to your own soul. The wise man learns to endure silence, because silence is the forge of wisdom. In stillness, the noise of the world fades, and what remains are the raw truths of the heart. At first, silence feels unbearable, like a void pressing down. But over time, he discovers that silence is not empty. It is full of the voice of conscience, the echo of eternity, the murmur of truths that cannot be shouted but only whispered. It is here that he begins to cultivate inner strength. Not the strength of domination or conquest, but the strength of clarity and self-mastery. He learns to govern his impulses, to question his own thoughts, to live deliberately rather than reactively. This discipline does not come overnight. It is carved slowly, like stone worn smooth by years of flowing water. Friedrich Nietzsche once remarked, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The wise man's inner struggle forces him to discover his why. Without it, he is torn apart by the contradictions of existence. With it, he gains the resilience to withstand suffering, solitude, and misunderstanding. The discovery of purpose does not end the struggle, but it gives the struggle meaning. And so the wise man continues, not yet triumphant, not yet serene, but more awake, more honest, more alive. The fire of questioning that began in the desert now burns within him, illuminating both his weaknesses and his possibilities. The path forward will demand more sacrifices, but also offer greater revelations. The next stage awaits: the forging of vision, the transformation of pain and clarity into guiding principles that shape a life not just endured but lived wisely. Out of struggle emerges shape. A man who has endured the storms of self-examination and survived the exile of awakening begins to glimpse a horizon beyond the turbulence. This horizon is not yet peace, nor is it perfection. It is vision, the slow emergence of guiding principles that give his suffering direction, his solitude purpose, and his clarity of form. Vision, for the wise man, is never a grandiose dream of conquest or domination. Those belong to the realm of ambition, which he has already unmasked as empty. His vision is quieter, yet far more enduring: to live in harmony with truth, no matter the cost. It is not the promise of riches or acclaim, but the promise of integrity, the alignment of thought, word, and action. The forging of this vision begins with simplicity. The wise man asks, what is essential? This question cuts through the excess that clutters modern existence. He learns that much of what people chase is unnecessary. Possessions that enslave, reputations that vanish, pleasures that fade. In stripping life to its core, he rediscovers values that are timeless. Courage, compassion, honesty, patience. These are not glamorous virtues. They are quiet, steady, demanding. Yet they are the architecture of wisdom. From this simplicity grows clarity. The wise man begins to distinguish between what is within his control and what is not. He cannot dictate the seasons of fate, the tempests of circumstance, or the whims of others. But he can govern himself, his responses, his choices, his inner posture toward the world. This insight liberates him from resentment, because he understands that railing against the uncontrollable is wasted fire. His strength lies in mastery of the self, not mastery of the universe. At this point, vision transforms struggle into meaning. The sufferings that once felt unbearable become teachers, chiseling his character into form. Pain is no longer a meaningless burden but a discipline that refines him. Loneliness is no longer despair but the soil in which self-understanding grows. Even failure becomes fuel, exposing illusions and forcing him to deepen his commitment to truth. The wise man does not seek suffering, but when it comes, he bends it toward wisdom. This vision is not static. It evolves. At first, it may appear fragile, like a candle flickering in the wind. But with time, with repetition, with practice, it grows into a steady flame. The wise man begins to live by principles rather than impulses, by depth rather than distraction. His choices become less reactive, more deliberate. He no longer needs to chase every fleeting desire, because he is rooted in something more enduring. And yet, vision is not only for the self. The wise man understands that wisdom is sterile if it does not serve others. His principles, though forged in solitude, extend outward in compassion. He learns to see the hidden struggles in others because he has endured his own. He listens more deeply, speaks more carefully, acts with greater responsibility. Wisdom, when authentic, radiates. It influences not by force but by presence, not by persuasion but by example. Here lies one of the greatest discoveries. That to live wisely is to live not only for oneself but as a steward of truth in a world starving for it. He does not impose his vision but embodies it, allowing others to glimpse through him the possibility of a life lived differently. In this way, the wise man becomes a quiet force, shaping the lives of others not through dominance but through authenticity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This single line captures the essence of the wise man's vision. Debate has its place, but action, embodied virtue, is what truly matters. The wise man ceases to dwell endlessly in abstraction and begins to live his philosophy in flesh and blood, step by deliberate step. Thus, vision emerges, not as an escape from suffering but as its transformation, not as a flight into fantasy but as a grounding in truth. And with vision comes direction. The wise man is no longer merely surviving his questions but walking a path shaped by them. Ahead lies the test of endurance. To live this vision consistently in a world designed to distract, distort, and derail. The next stage is not about discovery but about practice, the discipline of embodying wisdom in the face of relentless trials. Vision without practice is like a seed never planted, full of potential, but incapable of bearing fruit. The wise man knows that philosophy must not remain confined to lofty thoughts or private revelations. It must be embodied, tested, lived in the raw theater of daily existence. Wisdom is not an abstract possession but a discipline forged in repetition, in the smallest of choices, in the unseen battles no one applauds. The discipline of practice begins with constancy. A man may speak of courage in the quiet of solitude, but it is only when fear grips his heart in public that courage can be proven. He may declare compassion in theory, but only when confronted with those who wound him does compassion reveal its strength. Thus, the wise man trains himself not to admire virtues from afar, but to enact them in the very moments when they are hardest to embody. This requires vigilance. The mind, left unattended, wanders back toward old habits, resentment, envy, self-indulgence. The wise man therefore sharpens his attention as one would sharpen a blade. Each morning, he examines his intentions. Each night, he reflects upon his actions. He treats every day as a workshop of the soul, each interaction an opportunity to align himself more closely with truth. Progress is rarely dramatic. It is incremental, often invisible to others. But slowly, the discipline of practice strengthens him, layer by layer, until wisdom becomes not an occasional act but a way of being. The world resists this discipline. Everywhere, distractions beckon. Endless streams of information flood the mind, each demanding reaction rather than reflection. Advertisements prey on desire, news exploits fear, social media magnifies vanity. The wise man does not retreat entirely from the world, but he engages it with caution. He disciplines himself to filter what he consumes, to resist what seeks to enslave his attention, to anchor himself in silence amid the storm of noise. In doing so, he becomes free, not because the world has changed, but because he is no longer captive to its demands. Discipline also demands humility. The wise man does not pretend mastery. He knows that wisdom is a horizon always just beyond reach. He will fail, and he will fail often. Anger will slip through, pride will resurface, fear will paralyze. Yet he does not despair at these failures. Instead, he treats them as teachers. Each failure reveals the places where illusion still lingers, where growth is still required. Thus, discipline is not about perfection but perseverance. The wise man does not seek to be flawless. He seeks to be faithful, to return again and again to the path, no matter how many times he stumbles. Another dimension of practice is service. Wisdom hoarded is wisdom wasted. The wise man translates his vision into action not only for himself but for others. He gives counsel when asked, offers compassion without condition, and leads not by dominance but by example. Service tests wisdom, for it places the wise man in the messy realities of human relationships, where ideals collide with flaws and principles are strained by misunderstandings. Yet it is in these very challenges that wisdom proves itself genuine. Through practice, the wise man discovers that wisdom is not about escape but engagement. He does not flee the world but meets it with steadiness. He does not avoid suffering but learns to bear it with dignity. He does not isolate himself in superiority but integrates his philosophy into the fabric of ordinary life. Aristotle once wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit." These words reveal the heart of practice. Wisdom is not a sudden illumination but the fruit of disciplined repetition, of habits cultivated daily, of choices aligned with vision until they become second nature. By living this discipline, the wise man ceases to merely think wisely. He becomes wisdom in motion. His life, though imperfect, begins to embody coherence, depth, authenticity. And it is precisely this coherence that grants him peace. Not the peace of a life free from hardship, but the peace of knowing that his actions reflect his deepest truths. Yet one stage still remains. For wisdom, fully matured, is not only about discipline and peace but about legacy. The final question awaits. How does the wise man, nearing the end of his journey, leave behind something that endures beyond his life? The life of the wise man is not complete until it turns outward, beyond the self, into the realm of legacy. Wisdom is not meant to vanish at the grave. It seeks to ripple outward, to endure in memory, in example, in the lives it touches. The final stage of the wise man's journey is not about accumulation but transmission, not about clinging to life but about ensuring that what has been learned survives beyond him. Legacy is not measured in monuments, wealth, or titles. These fade quickly, swallowed by time. The wise man understands that his true inheritance to the world is not material but spiritual. He leaves behind ways of seeing, principles of living, habits of the soul. These are not carved in stone but in the hearts of those who witnessed his life. His legacy is not what he possessed, but what he embodied. To reach this stage, the wise man embraces mortality. He does not deny death nor cower before it. He accepts it as the natural completion of life's arc, the final teacher. In contemplating his finitude, he clarifies his priorities. Trivial pursuits lose their grip, and what remains are questions of substance. How did I live? Did I remain faithful to truth? Did I love well? Did I leave others better than I found them? Such questions form the compass of his final years. At this point, wisdom takes on a transcendent quality. The wise man no longer lives merely for personal growth, but for continuity. He becomes a bridge between past and future, carrying forward insights from generations before him and planting seeds for generations yet to come. He knows he cannot control how others will live, but he can light a path, offer a map, demonstrate a way of being that, if followed, may ease their own journey. This legacy often manifests in the smallest acts. A word of counsel that guides a friend through despair. A gesture of patience that teaches a child resilience. A life of integrity that inspires others to live authentically. The wise man does not need recognition. He knows that wisdom works invisibly, often flowering long after the one who sowed it has gone. Here, paradox again arises. The wise man becomes most free when he stops thinking of himself altogether. In seeking not personal glory but service, he transcends the confines of his own identity. His life, once narrowed to questions of survival and self, expands into the vastness of contribution. He becomes less a solitary figure and more a current of influence, a quiet stream nourishing all it touches. Legacy is also about reconciliation. The wise man, nearing the end, does not cling to bitterness or regret. He forgives where he can, releases what cannot be changed, and carries gratitude for what has been given. He does not pretend his life was flawless. Wisdom is not about perfection, but he embraces the wholeness of his story. The failures that taught him, the wounds that shaped him, the triumphs that revealed his strength. In doing so, he makes peace not only with death but with life itself. Confucius once wrote, "The man of wisdom delights in water. The man of humanity delights in mountains. The wise are active. The benevolent are still. The wise are joyful. The benevolent are long-lived." These words capture the dual movement of legacy. Wisdom flows outward, dynamic and vital, while love grounds it, giving it permanence. The wise man embodies both, ensuring that his influence continues even as his body fades. In the end, transcendence is not escape but fulfillment. The wise man does not flee the world. He blesses it. He does not vanish into silence. He leaves behind echoes that guide others. His philosophy becomes not just an intellectual system but a lived testament, a proof that a life can be shaped by truth, discipline, compassion, and vision. And so the journey completes its circle. From the desert of questions under indifferent stars to the quiet flame of legacy, the wise man has shown that wisdom is not a possession but a path. It is a fire that refines, a discipline that steadies, a vision that directs, and a legacy that endures. To live wisely is to live not merely for oneself, but for the world, for the future, for the eternal whisper of truth that outlives us all.